So if you don't really follow the music scene, there was a bit of a dust-up between Chad Kroeger of Nickelback and Corey Taylor of Stone Sour and Slipknot, where Kroeger called Stone Sour basically Nickelback light, and Taylor kind of responded in kind. Now, they've both dropped new albums recently, and I kind of figured I'd just throw them into one review, mostly because neither of them are worth the time it takes to create two separate reviews, so I'm going to pit them against each other and just have them fight it out. So since this is kind of a versus review, there can only be one winner. So which of these albums comes out on top? Well, unfortunately, much like the tagline for Alien vs. Predator, whoever wins, we all lose. So if I'm forced to pick a winner between these two albums, it has to be Nickelback's Feed the Machine. Now, that's not to say it's a good album, that I liked it, or anything positive about that album, because there is nothing positive about Nickelback's Feed the Machine, but let's talk about why I feel at least it's the better of the two albums. The worst thing that Feed the Machine does is just be boring. I mean, Chad Kroeger is essentially the musical equivalent of wet paint drying. It sounds like every other Nickelback album that's been released. It sounds like every other soft alt-rock album that's ever been released. I mean, it's a great album for those middle-aged dads out there driving trucks who want to listen to a song on the radio that makes them feel like they're back in their 20s and that their life isn't, going to shit, but it's just, there's nothing... There's nothing about the album itself. It's a checklist, essentially, of everything you need for a radio rock friendly alt-metal, alt-rock. There's really no elements of metal in here, let's be honest. It does everything it needs to do, and it doesn't do anything. It just sounds so flat and boring overall. There's not a lot to really talk about, and that's probably one of the better things about the album. It's got faux heavy tracks like the title track that I actually talked about and reviewed previous to its release, the song The Betrayal Act 3, which brings in a little bit of heavy edge to it, if you want to call it that. I don't know. There's a ballady track called Song on Fire that's probably going to be used for closing out shows, or there's the middle of the two that's definitely geared towards the radio for, it's not too heavy that it's going to, mess up little soccer moms or whatever, but it's not too heavy that it's going to, or it's not too soft that it's going to scare away everyone else. It's generally just meant to appeal to a wider audience. You've got a more serious song called Home. They even throw in an acoustic track at the end, and it's just that everything with the album itself is been there, done that, but on top of that, the production itself on here just feels so flat. Nothing stands out, nothing has emphasis. If it was a picture, it would be like the saturation was turned all the way down. It's fitting for the band and for the album and the songs and whatever, but it's just, there could have been some life to some of these songs. It's just the production itself isn't there. It just leaves no sort of impression other than, why did I listen to that? And what was that song again? Who cares? I don't want to go back to it. The lyrics are exactly what you'd expect. I mean, I'm moving on. I'm fighting through this. I'm on parole for driving my truck intoxicated into a pole. I made up the last one, but it's fitting, so I really don't care. It's just that this album, you've heard it, you know what to expect from it, and it's safe. If you already know you like Nickelback, if that's something you generally listen to, if you find yourself stuck to the radio, you're probably not going to hate this album. It's something you might like. You're going to find the heavier tracks appealing to you because they give you a sense of edge, whatever. You're going to find the softer songs moving and deep, whatever. But for the rest of us, there's nothing here. If you don't like Nickelback, this definitely will not change your mind. like I mentioned in my review of the title track, people were talking about how this was Nickelback does metalcore, and no. I said it in that review, and definitely not here. Absolutely not. It's just, if you want something entertaining more than this, go buy an ant farm and watch them build it. Sit there for 3 days, and you'll be more entertained than listening to this album. That unfortunately brings me to Stone Sour's Hydrograd, and I don't even want to talk about this album. I really don't. It's that bad. I mean, this album makes Suicide Silence album look good. It makes it look like it was produced so very well, which we know it wasn't. And it just, oh god, it took me 2 days to listen to this album because I couldn't get through it the first time. I got about halfway through, thought I was done with it, and realized I was only halfway through the album, and just had to turn it off because I was just about to lose it. It's infuriatingly bad. Some of the choices that they made, they don't work. They don't fit. They don't sound good. It's a mess. It is a big mess. It's. I guess I have to talk about it, so I suppose if I have to talk about this album, there's no better place to start than the beginning. And right off the bat, it just hits you with this, it's this weird Russian-esque stereotype of Russian sound. Whatever, if you say Russian, this is the sound that pops into your head. Just right from the get-go, this weird intro, and then it goes into the first real song, which is called Taipei Person / Alati, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be some sort of, whatever you call it, where those words sound like something else. Taipei Person, Type A Person. I don't know, maybe they're not that clever. I really don't know at this point. It's a terrible name, it's a terrible song, so it's fitting, but it's just, when I say this album's a mess, right from this song is where you can hear it. Right when it goes into, from the verse to this bridge or chorus, it's this weird transition, and I'm all for change-ups and weird transitions, but this doesn't feel right. This is so abrupt and so out of place. The tempo changes, the style changes, the whole tone of everything kind of just changes in that one instant, and it's so off-putting that I couldn't get over it right from that point. And it continues throughout these songs. Like most of these songs start off as something, and then the chorus will be something completely different. And again, I don't mean this. That could be a positive thing for some bands. Some bands do that very well, and it sounds unique. It progresses things a little bit. This is not one of those bands. These are transitions that just seem. What were they thinking? What were they doing? Why did they think this was a good idea? It's kind of like listening to. I mean, the best way I could put it is if you're listening to like a Metallica album, for instance, and all of a sudden, right before it gets into the chorus, it switches up into Hanson, for instance. Something that different, that abrupt, that change, and it feels so out of place. It goes from being a alt-rock kind of sounding song to hair metal, and it's just all of a sudden, there's no transition whatsoever. It's not smooth. It's not well done. It's just, I don't know what they were thinking with this album. And even at the end of the first track, I mean, I'm not even done talking about the first track, but everything I say here applies to every one of these songs, which is, again, why it took me so long to actually even get through this album. At the end of this, they leave in a studio clip of them, like they're just so proud of this song and so proud of this, which I'm sure they were. I'm sure they put time and effort into it. So I'm not going to say that. It's just what they came out with was not good or worthy of praise or anything. I mean, it's just none of it works at all. And on top of all that, I mean, you have the weird tempo changes, which again, I just think they're so off-putting that they're worth mentioning. There's the production of this album, which just, Nickelback's Feed the Machine was just flat. It sounded like the equalizer was just straight across the line. This is, I don't know how to describe it. The bass sounds like a broken coffee machine. The vocals just sound like they were, like the mic is shorting out while he's doing this, and the drumming just, it sounds like they're made out of tin cans. They're so underpowered. It just feels weird, almost like they were done not live but by a machine, and it's almost like a MIDI track. It just doesn't sound right the whole time, and it's kind of, all of this is basically how this album sounds. It's a mess. It does not feel like a cohesive band, and does not feel like a cohesive album. Even the songs don't feel like they fit together. They feel like they were stitched together from different ideas that Corey Taylor had, and just threw them into a pot and came out with whatever for each song. And it's unfortunate because there's some tracks on here that could have been at least okay. Especially the ones that kind of are, I would say, heavier. I know this personally what I'm drawn to, but the heavier tracks, at least on here, for them seem more natural. They don't seem as cheesy or as corny as the other songs. But they're ruined by these aspects. I mean, even if it was just the production, maybe I could get over that for some of these songs. But then you have the weird change-ups, the cheesy lyrics, and everything just adds up, and it becomes something that is just hard to listen to. I mean, I like I said, I really had a hard time even getting through this for this review. I wanted to give it a chance because people were talking about it. I know everyone likes Stone Sour, and I'm you know, decent on Slipknot and Stone Sour in general. I always thought it was a good project and a way for him to kind of show off what he could do, aside from screaming and metal and everything. But it just does nothing. Everything about this was a bad idea. Whoever sat down and said you should do this on this album was lying to them or hated them. I don't know, but Hydrograd just, I have no words left to talk about how unfortunate that this album is. So as you've probably gathered by now, I hate both of these albums. I really, really do. But why did I pick Nickelback's Feed the Machine over Stone Sour's Hydrograd as far as which one is the better of the two albums? Well, Feed the Machine, like I said, the worst sin it commits is that it's plain, it's boring, it's just stale, but it hits its target demographic, and I can't get mad at it for that. It does what it needs to do to appeal to the audience it's trying to appeal to, and it doesn't work for me, definitely not. It doesn't work for a lot of people. There's nothing that stands out about it. There's nothing good. It's a flat line. It's not the worst thing I've heard. It's not good. It's not going to make you like Nickelback. It's not going to make you hate Nickelback any more than you probably already do. But it does what it needs to do. It checks everything off, and for that, if that's the worst thing that it does, I mean, that's not horrible. Stone Sour's Hydrograd, on the other hand, just, I mean, on top of being boring and generic and flat, the production's horrible. Conceptually, it's just a mess. Lyrically, it's cringeworthy, and it doesn't do anything well, and everything it does is bad. Thank you so much for watching the video. As you can tell, I hate both those albums. I did not enjoy listening to either one of them, and really, I didn't enjoy even talking about them. But I'm sure some of you guys love them for whatever reason, so let me know how wrong I am down in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more.